Part 28. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 271. The peasant woman was so excited that she couldn't help herself, and said repeatedly, "I saw it, I saw it." Guyunjiao said softly, "No hurry, there is another side." The peasant woman suppressed her excitement. Guyunjiao slowly removed the clip and began to operate on the other eye. The first time was born and the second time was cooked. This time the speed was slightly faster than before. It's just that new troubles arose. It was the end of March now, and there was a big temperature difference between morning and night. When Guyunjiao came out, she was still wearing a small jacket. At this time, the sun has risen, and the sunlight can directly shine in this room. The temperature is getting higher and higher. Guyunjiao is too hot, not only sweat on her back, but also sweat on her forehead. She didn't expect this problem before, so she quickly shouted, "Someone wipe my sweat." The maid who was waiting in the corner was about to step forward, but she saw Zhang Yuzi coming over quickly, took out the handkerchief from her sleeve pocket, and carefully wiped the sweat from Guyunjiao's forehead. Guyunjiao didn't even have time to say thank you. She turned her head and continued the operation. King Kong looked at Zhang Yuzi's focused expression when he wiped his sweat, and seemed to understand something. Zhang Yuzi backed away after wiping off his sweat. However, he looked at Guyunjiao intently, waiting for her to sweat again, then he would go up to wipe the sweat at any time. Soon after the operation was completed, Guyunjiao put eye drops on the patient to prevent infection. The peasant woman lay on the bed for a long time. Guyunjiao washed her hands and prescribed a prescription. The prescription is also to prevent postoperative infection. After a while, Guyunjiao said, "Okay, it's time to get up." The peasant woman opened her eyes. A few men who were still far away suddenly gathered around and stared at the peasant woman. After seeing it, Chi exclaimed. The eyes that were originally blindfolded by the white shackles have now returned to their original state, with clear black and white. There is still some potion in the peasant woman's eyes, her eyes are moving flexibly, and her face is full of joy. She considers herself lucky. There are a lot of people who were recruited by the palace to suffer from blindness, but she was selected for surgery, and the rest are still taking medicine every day, and I don't know when they will take it. Royal Dr. Han stretched out his hand and shook it in front of the peasant woman. "Can you see?" In fact, he himself knew that this was nonsense. The layer of white veil on his eyes was all gone. Can he see it? The peasant woman was no longer afraid of anything, and said with a smile, "If you can see it, you can see everything." Kong Wang was very excited. "It's really amazing." Royal Dr. Han sighed in admiration. This kind of treatment is really unheard of. Even Mr. Lu couldn't stop nodding. Today's old man is really eye-opening. Lin Chuo looked at Guyunjiao from a distance, her eyes full of admiration. This may seem simple, but with those little tools to operate in the eyes, think about how difficult it is. Zhang Yuzi only glanced at the peasant woman and walked towards Guyunjiao. He asked softly, "Are you tired?" Guyunjiao smiled at him, "I'm not tired, but I'm a little nervous. After all, this is the first time to have this operation." Zhang Yuzi said softly, "You did such a good job for the first time, you are really amazing." Guyunjiao was very happy. She also has a sense of accomplishment when the patient is cured, and it is still the immediate effect. To be sincerely praised again, double the happiness. At this time, King Kong glanced at the two of them again. He got married at the age of 18, and now has a wife and 2 concubines. He has tasted the taste of love, and naturally he can see what Zhang Yuzi's eyes are surging. He smirked inwardly without making a sound. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 272. Guyunjiao beckoned the peasant woman to come over, handed her the prescription, and gave her a small porcelain bottle. "There are eye drops in this bottle. You remember to order them in the morning and evening. Just put them in your eyes and lie down for a while. For this recipe, I will grab the medicine in a while, and remember to take one medicine a day, morning and evening. Don't be tired these days, and rest your eyes more. The peasant woman nodded vigorously. I heard that Drgu, you are from Rengzentang. I will go to Rengzentang to get medicine. Guyunjiao smiled. Well, Rengzentang's medicines are personally checked by me, and the quality is very good. The peasant woman happily took the prescription and the porcelain bottle before leaving, and remembered that the Lord was still here, and she couldn't leave without the Lord saying that she would leave. King Kong waved to the maid, and the maid stepped forward and took the peasant woman away. The peasant woman was taken by the maid to concubine Yun's yard. The peasant woman knelt on the ground, and the maid described to concubine Yun vividly how Dr. Gu cured the peasant woman. Concubine Yun was also overjoyed and asked the peasant woman, "Can you see it?" The peasant woman kowtowed on the ground, "Thank you for your kindness, now I can see with both eyes, the same as before." Concubine Yun smiled and told the maid, "She helped me, give me some money and tell her to go." The peasant woman got the money and left with great gratitude. After a while, King Kong brought Guyunjiao to concubine Yun's courtyard. When concubine Yun heard that Dr. Gu was coming, she turned her face in the direction of the door and was very excited. "Is Dr. Gu here?" Her eyes were getting blurry day by day, until now she could only see a little light and shadow. "Every day, I have to rely on the help of the maids and maids to walk. I can't see the beautiful flowers and plants, I can't see the delicate silk and satin, I can't even see my own face." No one could understand the urgency of her wanting to see the light again. Mammy smiled beside her and said, "I just entered the door." Concubine Yun hurriedly said, "Bring her here quickly, don't do those red tapes." The maid brought Guyunjiao over. Concubine Yun stretched out her hand, groped for a while, grabbed Guyunjiao's hand, and sighed, "How could a young girl who is only 15 have this ability? By the way, Dr. Gu, I want to have surgery now, okay?" Guyunjiao smiled, "I'll check the pulse of the Empress first. If you're healthy, you can operate after the room is disinfected." Concubine Yun couldn't wait to say, "My body is actually not bad, but my eyes are not good." Before she came, Guyunjiao also listened to Imperial Dr. Han, and roughly judged that, apart from some menopausal symptoms, concubine Yun should have no other problems with her body. She smiled and said, "The maiden's mood is calmer, so I can take the pulse." Concubine Yun is indeed trained in the palace, and has a strong ability to control emotions. It only took a short time to calm down. After taking her pulse, Guyunjiao nodded, "My lady's body, it's fine to have an operation. Those little problems with hot flashes and night sweats don't prevent surgery. These are all symptoms of menopause," and she didn't plan to prescribe medicine for concubine Yun. There was an imperial doctor in the palace. If she took the initiative to prescribe medicine for concubine Yun, wouldn't she be ruining the family's job? She turned her head to look at the sky. It was estimated that it was around 11 o'clock. Now, in that operating room, vinegar is being fumigated as instructed to take care of Yun Xiao. Guyunjiao thought for a while, in this case, the surgery will be done around noon. I'll go to the kitchen first to sterilize the surgical instruments. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 273. Without concubine Yun's instructions, the mama took Guyunjiao to the kitchen in person. On the way, Guyunjiao said to her mother, "I still have to trouble my mother to find a single coat for me. The girls will wear it. I'm a little hot in a little jacket, and I'm afraid of sweating after the surgery." Mammy responded quickly, "Drgu, don't worry, it will be ready for you soon. In this yard, A small kitchen was set up for concubine Yun alone. Gu Yunjiao had someone fetch water, and put the surgical instruments and the cloth towel around them in a pot to cook. There are no conditions for modern disinfection here, only this primitive method can be used. At this moment, concubine Yun took Kong Wang's hand and was very excited. "Son, can you really see my mother in a while?" King Kong nodded vigorously. "It's true, my son saw with his own eyes that Dr. Gu cured the peasant woman." Concubine Yun nodded slowly, tears suddenly bursting out of her eyes. "I don't know how long I haven't seen my son's face." King Kong held concubine Yun's hand tightly. "When concubine Mu's eyes are healed, concubine Mu will be able to take a good look at her son." He patted concubine Yun's hand. "Don't worry, concubine mother, my son will be by my side during the operation. The peasant woman just said that the operation is not painful, so don't be afraid of the concubine." Kong Wang said that he wanted to cry. Concubine Yun was not welcomed by the emperor. Perhaps for this reason, King Kong also did not please the emperor. Finally, when King Kong was 18 years old, he became a vassal, and concubine Yun made a request to follow her son to the vassal. Perhaps the emperor was reluctant to see concubine Yun, so he readily agreed. Concubine Yun came to Xiangcheng, and without the intrigue in the palace, she lived a very comfortable life. "It's just that after a few days of good days, my eyes have gone wrong." Kong Wang, who wanted to make his mother and concubine happy, blamed himself very much. But the imperial doctor said that there is no cure for this disease at all. King Kong had already sent people to various places to look for good doctors, and concubine Yun had been taking medicines for 2 years one after another, but it didn't work. A few days ago, concubine Yun said that she no longer wanted to take medicine. She took bitter medicine every day, and her mouth had no taste, and her stomach was about to go bad. She was blind. King Kong, however, did not want to give up hope, so he told concubine Yun to try again for the last time, and ordered people to seek medical treatment in various places in Xiangcheng. Now, the wishes of the mother and son are about to come true. How can they not be excited? After a while, Gu Yunjiao, who was cooking surgical instruments in the kitchen, was invited to an empty room by the maid. There was a new set of clothes in the room, an ivory yellow shirt and a lotus-colored skirt with delicate and intricate embroidery on it. In addition, there is a set of snow-white silk tunic. The maid smiled and said, "This is the new spring shirt made by the princess. It's not on the upper body yet, girl, give it a try." All the clothes were brought. It would be too hypocritical for Gu Yunjiao to say any more excuses, and she had just stayed in the kitchen to watch the fire, and her body was sweating even more, and her tight-fitting middle clothes were already soaked. She asked the maid to fetch her water. After washing his body and putting on new clothes, his whole body felt much refreshed. The maid clapped her hands beside her. "Yeah, Dr. Gu wears this dress is really suitable, the size is also suitable, the color also complements the doctor, it's so beautiful." Gu Yunjiao smiled, went to the kitchen to get the surgical instruments and went to the previous Yaoxian. "The house has just been smoked with vinegar, and it still smells great. The wooden bed on which the peasant woman was lying has long been carried out and thrown away. Inside was replaced with a bed of the same height and size, made of wenge wood. The maids also spread brocade mattresses on it. This bed was ordered by King Kong long ago, and he couldn't have let his mother use a bed that a peasant woman had lain on. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 274. Surgical instrument. Kong Wang actually had 2 sets of work done, but this work was meticulous, and the other set was not ready yet. But at this moment, both King Kong and concubine Yun couldn't wait. Gu Yunjiao asked people to open all the windows in the room to ventilate, took a cotton ball herself, and carefully wiped the instruments with disinfectant. When concubine Yun and King Kong came over, it was almost noon. This is the brightest time of day. The weather is fine today and the spring is bright. After Gu Yunjiao disinfected her hands, she began to disinfect concubine Yun's eyes. Concubine Yun felt that Gu Yunjiao's hand was very light. She has already begun to make up for Gu Yunjiao's appearance. She must be a good-looking and gentle little girl. There were not so many onlookers in the house this time, only the personal maids of King Kong and concubine Yun were there. Gu Yunjiao instructed Mammy, if she sees sweat on her forehead, she should wipe it off immediately. The room was bright and Gu Yunjiao's hands were steady. When she carefully clipped the layer of white shading out, she asked, "Can the Niang see it?" Concubine Yun suppressed her excitement and said softly, "I can see it." She could see the beams in the house and the tiles on the roof. Then Gu Yunjiao began to operate on the other eye again. Some people have cataracts in only one eye, and some people have both eyes. Unfortunately, concubine Yun is the kind of cataract that has both eyes. When the white shading of the other eye was also taken out, Gu Yunjiao carefully observed the shape of concubine Yun's pupils and asked, "Can the lady see it?" Concubine Yun replied clearly, "I can see it, both eyes can see it." King Kong and Mammy looked at each other from a distance, both very excited. In order not to disturb Gu Yunjiao's surgery, King Kong did not dare to approach. Gu Yunjiao dropped eye drops and let concubine Yun rest. Then she also gave Yunfei a prescription to prevent postoperative infection. After she packed up her things, she saluted King Kong, "The people's daughter, retire." Kong Wang hurriedly said, "Dr. Gu, don't rush to leave, the mother and concubine are here, I am still a little worried, or else, Dr. Gu will stay in the palace for a few days before leaving." Gu Yunjiao was extremely embarrassed, and living in the palace would not have the comfort of her own home. Besides, she was sitting in the Rengzhen Hall. Although there were not many patients, she always had to see a few a day. Isn't this a matter of delaying her? At this time, concubine Yun, who was lying on the bed, said, "Don't embarrass the doctor, Wang Ye, she has a pharmacy at home, so you can let her go. I think that the peasant woman is just like a normal person, and the mother is not so delicate." King Kong had no choice but to say, "That's what the concubine said." Gu Yunjiao said softly, "Thank you, Niang." Then she explained the eye drops and the oral medicine carefully to the mother. Mammy nodded again and looked at Gu Yunjiao with gratitude in her eyes. Gu Yunjiao was embarrassed by her. King Kong said with a smile, "Dr. Gu has to eat before leaving. Xiao Wang has someone prepare a banquet, and he also invites Dr. Gu to appreciate it." Gu Yunjiao could only nod her head. She walked beside Kong Wang, half a step behind. Not far away, they saw a pavilion where Zhang Yuzi and Lin Shuo were playing chess. I thought it was to pass the time when she was bored. Hearing the movement, both of them looked over. She saw Gu Yunjiao dressed in elegant silk clothes, standing there as slim as a lotus flower in bud. Both of them said in their hearts that it looks so good in this dress. King Kong stopped on the side of the road and said loudly, "Brother Zhang, my concubine's eye disease has been cured. Xiao Wang has prepared a banquet to thank Dr. Gu. Can I invite Brother Zhang to accompany him? The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jinkui. Chapter 275. Zhang Yuzi laughed, "That's annoying. I'll invite another guest for the Lord, how about Brother Lin?" Only then did King Kong glance at Lin Shuo. He knew that Zhang Yuzi was not an abrupt person. Since he invited Lin Shuo for him, there must be something special about Lin Shuo. He looked at Lin Shuo for a while and suddenly said, "Why do I think Brother Lin has a good face, where did he seem to have seen him?" Lin Shuo was silent, and just bowed his hands to King Kong. King Kong smiled and said, "Let's go together." The group followed King Kong to a hall. King Kong sat on the main seat, Gu Yunjiao and Zhang Yuzi sat on the left and right sides of him, Lin Shuo sat below Zhang Yuzi, and there was no one else. King Kong invited Gu Yunjiao to accompany him personally. This was deliberately ignoring her female identity and only treating her as a doctor with superb medical skills. He felt that Gu Yunjiao deserved his respect. King Kong prepared wine, and Gu Yunjiao waved her hand to indicate that she would not drink it, so King Kong refused to persuade her. Zhang Yuzi and Lin Shuo accompanied King Kong to drink a small cup. During the banquet, King Kong suddenly remembered something, and instructed the servant, "By the way, the few doctors who live in the house can be sent away. There are also those peasant women, who are also sent back." The little servant took his life. He went to a remote yard and said to the 3 doctors who were drinking together, "Your Highness ordered a few to pack up and leave the house as soon as possible." One of them said in surprise, "Let's go out of the house? Has the Empress's eye disease been cured?" The little servant snorted, "Our mother's eye disease has been cured." The 3 of them said in unison, "How is that possible?" The little servant laughed, "It seems that you think that the concubine's eye disease is incurable." He suddenly raised his face, "Since that's the case, why don't you all come to the palace for cheating?" Several people got up in a hurry, but said they didn't dare. Another person asked again, "Dare to ask which doctor cured the Empress's eye disease?" The little servant thought that this is not a shameful thing, so he said, "It's Dr. Gu of Rengzentang. I heard that Dr. Gu is very skilled, and it only took half an hour to cure the Empress." Several people looked at each other. One person asked, "Do you recognize Dr. Gu of Rengzentang?" The other stomped, "Oh, I remembered, isn't that the little girl that day?" At that time, Dr. Zhang from Kailantang said that she even saved the dead, and no one believed her. The other 2 recalled, "Is it her? Is there really such a superb medical skill in the world?" The little servant snorted, "How can Dr. Gu's medical skills be imagined by you? It's spread all over the house now, and many people say that they are going to Rengzentang to find Dr. Gu." The servant waved his hand, "Hurry up, everyone, let's go after dinner. Our Lord is merciful, and we will not pursue a few." These people smiled awkwardly. The servant went to the next yard again and ordered the old ladies to send the peasant women away. A few peasant women already knew the news. The one who was cured by Gu Yunjiao in the morning told them when he came back to pack his things. Now they are eager to leave the house and go to Rengzentang to find Dr. Gu. Hearing what they said, the little servant said kindly, "Dr. Gu is still having a feast in our house, so I don't have time at the moment. Our Lord will accompany him in person. By the way, don't make a mistake. Dr. Gu is a woman and she is young." Several people firmly remembered the little servant's words. One by one, they hurried back to the house to pack their packages, all of whom said that they would go to Ren Xiantang to look for Dr. Gu early in the morning. There are a few more chapters at 12 noon. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 276. Gu Yunjiao was almost finished eating here. Concubine Yun sent someone again, saying that Concubine Yun wanted to see Dr. Gu. Gu Yunjiao went over. Concubine Yun had just finished her meal. She washed her hands and looked at Gu Yunjiao with a gentle smile on her face. After reading her, he said, "I think you are not like this." Gu Yunjiao was born like her father, with willow eyebrows, peach blossom eyes, and when she smiled, her eyes looked like 2 crescent moons. There was some baby fat on his face, and he looked immature, but there was a very quiet bookish air on his body. Gu Yunjiao smiled, "My lady thinks what I should be like." Concubine Yun smiled and said, "When you operated on me, your hands were very light. I think you should be that kind of gentle little girl, but you look like a graceful lady." She tilted her head like a little girl. "She looks so good looking, the more you look at it, the more you love it." She smiled and said, "You have worked hard for you today." I just want to see what you look like. When you are free, I will let someone pick you up to play. Gu Yunjiao was deeply blessed, Niang Niang Wan, and then she withdrew. Go out, Kong Wang has already prepared the carriage. There were 3 carriages in total, and one of them had no one on it. There's a car full of stuff in there. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Rengzintang. Gu Yunjiao got out of the car, and the servants of the palace began to carry things inside. On the street, people came and went, looking at the exquisite boxes and silk and satin. Many people stopped to watch, whispering to find out what happened. The servants of the palace heard the surrounding discussions and said cheerfully, Dr. Gu has cured concubine Yun's stubborn illness. These are all thanks and rewards from the concubine and the lord. The palace also needs to establish an image, and this kind of gratitude is a positive image. Some passers-by are envious. The shopkeepers in the shops next door also came out to watch the fun. Even the Kylin Hall, which was farther away, was disturbed. Shopkeeper's son saw people on the street rushing over there. Not knowing what happened, he rushed out and stood on the steps to look over there. There are so many things that the palace has rewarded, and the 2 servants moved back and forth for a long time before they emptied the things on the carriage. Shopkeeper's son quickly found out that Dr. Gu of Rengzintang had cured concubine Yun. His face was contorted for a while, and he returned to the shop angrily. He sat there and scolded, Mother, this little girl doesn't know what luck it is, and she has cured her stubborn illness. Dr. Zhang, who was too lazy to watch the excitement, was startled and said, What did you say? That little girl really cured the empress. Shopkeeper's son was displeased, Haha, this is still fake. I'm afraid the rewards from the palace at this moment will almost flood her family. Dr. Zhang didn't know what was in his heart. I originally wanted to kill, but who knew it was a success? He stared blankly at the street outside, and a vague thought arose in his heart, I am afraid that this Kylin Hall will soon be shut down. At that time, where should I go to get a bite to eat? In the main room in the backyard of Rengzintang, all kinds of things are piled up. Chen Shi closed the door, smiling until his teeth were out of sight, and instructed Atai, you come to read the gift list, I will match the items to a pair, and then put the items away. Atai recited from the first one, 1,000 taels of gold. Chen Shi was taken aback, my God, which box contains gold? You have to find out so much gold, don't let anyone take 1 or 2 away. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 277. Sanya pointed at a small box on the ground next to her, Mother, isn't this, I think 2 people carried it in before. Chen Shi patted his head, look at me, the more I live, the more I go back, it must be this, 1,000 taels of gold is not light. Then she opened the box and looked at it, and the golden light inside was flickering, almost blinding her eyes. Sanya said curiously from the side, is this gold? It's a lot. She wanted to touch it but didn't dare to touch it. Li Shi didn't look at the gold. Her eyes were fixed on the silk and satin. The silk and satin looked radiant. If it was worn on the body, it would not be beautiful. Then she heard Oceanian, a set of red gold and pearl heads. Chen Shi looked around, and finally found a black lacquer inlaid snail box. As soon as it was opened, the eyes of several women in the room would not turn. Even Sanya and Yingzi, who are still young, have their eyes shining. Chen Shi touched his heart, recited the Buddha, and covered the box and put it aside. Atai said again, a set of red gold and gemstone heads. 1 ring of red gold 7 treasures. A pair of mutton fat jade imperial concubine bracelets. A pair of jade round bracelets. 8 horses of cloud brocade. 8 horses of shujin. And Gu Yunjiao is currently in front of people to see a doctor. After the lively moment just now, people who were sick or not on the street crowded into the Rengzin Hall as if they were crazy. That row of long empty chairs now finally has a place for heroes. Lin Chuo and Ahu were busy maintaining order and guiding everyone to line up. Zhang Yuzi had to stand beside Gu Yunjiao, in case someone squeezed over. The huge three pavilions were crowded to the brim. Gu Yunjiao first instructed Lin Chuo and Ahu, "You ask, if you have a look at Xiao Fang may I, even if you are a pediatrician, please come back. I'm not good at this. Anyone who sees oral dentistry, please come back. I can't see this. Don't let people line up in vain." Lin Chuo and Ahu asked patiently. Lin Chuo, a noble boy, has never done such a thing. For some reason, he feels pretty good, at least he can help some people. Gu Yunjiao took the pulse and prescribed the prescription, but Zhang Shun and Lu Zhu were too busy to get the medicine, so they called Lao Ju and Atai from behind to help. Lao Ju is specially responsible for packing. Atai backed up the recipe. Seeing that the order was maintained, Zhang Yuzi also went to the counter to help copy the recipe, and asked Atai to get the medicine. Gu Yunjiao glanced at the lively scene in the store, and estimated that the heat brought by this time would last at least a few days. If the business is still so good in the future, she is afraid to implement the calling system. The guy from Kailantang stood at the door and looked towards Rengzintang. Because there were too many people in the store, under the guidance of Lin Chuo and Ahu, there was already a long queue at this moment, extending far from the inside to the outside. Guy Carey waited for a while, and when he turned around, he saw shopkeeper's son standing behind him with a gloomy face. He shrank his neck and slipped back. Gu Yunjiao was busy until the sun set. It was getting dark, and several patients were waiting in the shop. She thought about it for a while, and asked Atai to write 1234 on a piece of paper, stamp it with a small stamp, and send it to a few people. She said softly, "It's getting late now, and the light in the store is not good, so this medicine can't be wrong. A little bit, wait until tomorrow morning, a few people will come again, I will show everyone in this order." These people took the note and then went back. Zhang Shun and Lu Zhu closed the door, and Zhang Yuzi poured water to wash Gu Yunjiao's hands. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jinkui. Chapter 278. Zhang Shun smiled and said, "Master, if this is the case every day from now on, Zuzi and I will definitely be too busy, and we have to add 1 or 2 guys." Gu Yunjiao shook her head, took the handkerchief Zhang Yuzi handed over and wiped her hands. "Don't be busy. This is to see a doctor, and it's not to buy anything in short supply. How can there be so many people every day? It's just a few days." She thought about it for a while and told Lu Zhu and Zhang Shun, "The more people there are, the less you can't panic. It's better to slow down. You must check the medicine carefully, and you must not make mistakes." Zhang Shun nodded, "Don't worry, I have checked all the recipes today." A few people finished the door, and then went to the back for dinner. The main room was full of piles, and Chen locked the door and let Ahu and Lao Ju place the table in the courtyard. The whole table is full of people who are in a happy mood, the business in the shop is good, and their future life will be better. Today, I added another braised duck, double-cooked pork, braised fish, and a large pot of steamed eggs with minced meat. The craftsmanship of Osman thus is getting better and better, and there is really no one these days. Even Mrs. Li had a smile on her face. She thought about the silk and satin and the face, and wondered how to ask her daughter. After eating, Mrs. Chen hurriedly pulled Gu Yunjiao to the main room, pointed to the neatly sized box and said, "What should I do with these things? Now there are so many people in my family and there is no warehouse. If I don't put it in a proper place, I'm afraid not safe." Gu Yunjiao naturally wanted to put things in the medicine storehouse, but there was no safe place in the medicine storehouse. She looked at the silk and satin that Lao Gao had piled up. "I can use these silk and satin as I see fit, and if I can't use it, I can go to the next door to replace it. The rest, I'll take it to the warehouse over there." Chen Shi was startled. "That's not good, there's no one living there, so let's put things in there, isn't it? Gu Yunjiao said in a low voice, don't worry, mother, there is a cellar with a wall over there. I have kept it, and no one will find it. Only then did Chen Shi nodded, then you must keep it well, so that no one can see any traces. When Gu Yunjiao came out, she asked Ahu to drive the carriage over, and then moved things up. Seeing Ahu carrying boxes after boxes, Mrs. Li became anxious, where are these things going? Gu Yunjiao said vaguely, people come and go here, it's not safe to put things here, I'll go to a proper place. Li was in a hurry, where to put it? These things can be used, why put them away? Gu Yunjiao didn't think these things could be used. Those head and face jewelry, can she still wear a head, and then go to the front for a consultation? She was also afraid of dazzling the patient's eyes. The jade bracelet is also very careful, and it will knock if you are not careful. Clothes and jewelry are to be changed according to the occasion. In such a small courtyard, you bring those things that are priceless at first sight, isn't it obvious that you are going to be robbed? These eye-catching jewelry are only suitable for those wives and grandmothers who are in the big mansion, and the ladies and grandmothers who are not close to the door. Seeing that the boxes were being moved less and less, Mrs. Li became anxious, pointed to a large black lacquer box and said, don't move this, I want this. She remembered very clearly that the head here was a whole set of red gold pearl heads, and she had already taken a fancy to it. She is not greedy for gold or something, she just likes these delicate jewelry and satin. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth. Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 279. Ahu glanced at Gu Yunjiao. Gu Yunjiao waved her hand, and Ahu quickly loaded the things into the car. Gu Yunjiao then said to the Li family, these are not suitable for you. You want jewelry. After a while, when I'm free, I'll take you to the silver building to make some patterns. Li's grievance is extremely wrong. Can the fight from Yinlu be compared to the one sent by the palace? When she was dissatisfied, she rushed out, I don't like the jewelry in Yinlu. How can you be so selfish? If I gave birth to you and raised you, you would be reluctant to ask you for jewelry. In the future, I can still count on you to honor me. Gu Yunjiao laughed angrily, oh, filial piety. Emotionally, are you still waiting for my filial piety? Then I'll tell you today, don't count on me, I can give you a bowl of rice, it's all for the sake of giving birth to me. These words are simply outrageous in this era, but the surrounding Chen Shi, Ahu, and Zhang Yuzi and Gu Chuan under the corridor of the East Wing all acted as if they had not heard it. After Ahu finished moving things, Gu Yunjiao got into the car, and the car went out through the side door. Seeing that the whole house was evacuated, Mrs. Li couldn't help crying in grievance. Chen Shi was watching from the side, for fear that Ahu would bump into something, see Gu Yunjiao's mother and daughter unhappy, and left long ago. Gu Chuan came down from the corridor of the East Wing, and he saw what happened just now. Why are you crying, mother? There is no reason for daughters to be old-aged in this world. There is no reason why a married girl has to raise a younger brother. He pursed his lips, sister is already very difficult. Didn't you hear her hoarse voice? It should be my responsibility to raise you. I will buy the things you want when I grow up and can earn money. My sister is someone who has been married long ago. She has earned gold and silver, and that is her of. Li was stunned when Gu Chuan, who was less than 8 years old, said such a thing. Zhang Yuzi was under the corridor of the East Wing, only watching quietly without making a sound. Xiao Chuan knows how to be grateful, and also knows that he feels sorry for his sister. He is a righteous child, and he speaks clearly and makes sense. He beckoned to Gu Chuan, Xiao Chuan, bring your homework, I'll check it for you. Gu Chuan obediently went back to his room to get his homework. Ahu drove the car to the warehouse and helped move things into the house. Then he went out knowingly and stayed outside the gate. Gu Yunjiao moved back and forth several times, and finally put everything in the medicine store. She couldn't move a whole box of gold, so it took a few times to get it in. When she came out of the medicine store, she took 2 ingots and 20 taels of gold and put them in her arms. I was busy moving in and out of some medicinal materials, and then I went out. When she got home, Gu Yunjiao saw Mrs. Chen sitting under the lamp in the main room, taking out the solace of her shoes. Those shoes were made for her. Mrs. Chen had only measured her size a while ago. And Mr. Li sat beside him in a daze. Gu Yunjiao took out 2 ingots of gold from her arms and handed them to the Chen family. Chen Shi took it, and the gold was heavy in his hand. Gu Yunjiao smiled and said, "Mother, the gold in this palace is of good quality. You can take it to the silver building tomorrow to make some jewelry. Get Sanya a bracelet and a pair of ear studs, don't put that tea-stalk in her ears." Mother herself also made a pair of bracelets, a few gold hairpins, and earrings. Chen Shi hurriedly said, "That doesn't take so much, it's 40 taels, and besides." She glanced at Li Shi next to her. "The Prime Minister seduced me to give birth." Author, Jin Kui. Chapter 280. Gu Yunjiao said indifferently, "It's useful, the bracelet is solid, I'm afraid it will cost a lot of gold, I'm afraid it won't be enough, if it's not enough, Mother will ask me to get it. Also, Mother's account is that I will settle wages with Yinlu at that time." Chen Shi listened to Gu Yunjiao's words. This gold does not have Li Shi's share. And obviously she didn't plan to give Li's gold. She understands that Gu Yunjiao is not a stingy person. If she doesn't give it to Li, this is obviously because she still has grievances against Li's previous words. She doesn't want to mix things up between the mother and daughter. She got up with a smile, "Thank you so much, Mother. It's better to be Jiao Xiao, that fool Saburo, even if he earns money, he can't think of it." Gu Yunjiao smiled. She was upgraded again in Chen's heart, from Yunjiao to Jiao Xiao. The first upgrade was from Dalan's daughter-in-law to Yunjiao. She actually likes it. She released her kindness, and Chen Shi readily accepted it, and then repaid the kindness in her own way. Maybe what they give to each other is not equal in the value of money, but their intentions are the same. As there is a relationship, the love will become deeper and deeper. Li Shi couldn't understand, she was Gu Yunjiao's biological mother, why did Gu Yunjiao treat her mother-in-law so well, but she left her biological mother aside? She held back her anger. "Don't I have gold for jewelry?" Gu Yunjiao said lightly, "Don't you like Yinlu's jewelry?" Li Shi looked aggrieved. "If you don't give me that pearl face, what can I do if I don't go to the silver building to fight?" Gu Yunjiao smiled lightly, "It's too late. I don't want to give it now." Li's hand pointed at Chen's. "I am your mother, why don't you give it to her and not me?" Chen Shi was so embarrassed that he didn't want to leave or stay. Gu Yunjiao said lightly, "The gold I earn, I will give it to whoever I want. Mother treats me well, I'll be willing to give her more." Her expression suddenly faded. "I just don't want to give it to you." After Gu Yunjiao finished speaking, she went back to her room. Only Chen and Li were left in the main room. Chen quickly slipped away. Li was sitting in the main room and wept. Gu Yunjiao was sitting in the ear room reading a book. The crying sound was like a magic voice piercing her ears, which was maddening. She also knew that she was a little too emotional. Perhaps he was putting his resentment towards his mother in his previous life on Li Shi. Li Shi, who had endured double, could only admit that he was unlucky. Strictly speaking, in addition to not caring about the number of children, Li Shi did not fulfill the responsibility of being a mother, nor did he do any heinous things. Gu Yunjiao covered her ears irritably. She was wondering if she should forcibly send Mrs. Li back to her parents' house. but thinking of Gu Chuan, she sighed again. Nowadays, when eating every day, Mrs. Li follows what she said and sits next to Gu Chuan, sometimes serving Gu Chuan with food. When Gu Chuan came back from school, she would also ask a question or two. Gu Chuan seemed to smile more than before. Thinking of this, Gu Yunjiao decided to endure Li Shi for a little longer. At this moment, Gu Yunjiao heard a small tuk-tuk-tuk voice. She loosened her fingers from her ears, and someone was knocking on her window. She opened the window and saw Zhang Yuzi standing outside with a cup in his hand. He smiled very gently and handed her the cup. "Drink this, Peng Dehai is soaked in here, your throat is almost hoarse, drink some to moisten your throat." Gu Yunjiao took the cup, and her mood suddenly improved. "You can now prescribe medicine for the doctor, which is really amazing."